Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. For this week, we're working on a watercolor painting. After going through all my old artworks a few weeks ago, I was reminded of how much I love the watercolor mediums. So I decided to go ahead and create an updated version of an older piece, which I'll tell you more about in a bit. I'll walk you through the process of how I do everything. So to start, I drew directly on Arch's watercolor paper and then I prepared my watercolor paints. I'm using Magello's Mission Gold Pure Pigment Watercolor Artist Paints here. And then for the brushes, I use both a combination of synthetic sable and ox hair brushes. Magello is a Korean brand, and their Mission Gold Pure Pigments is one of the best quality pigmented watercolors I've used. I built this palette a long time ago, so I had to swatch out the colors again to see what I was dealing with. So before I start painting, I run a kneaded eraser all over the drawing to remove the excess graphite and lift off the pencil lines. You'll also see me doing some last minute adjustments to the line art to make sure that everything is looking okay. So before proceeding, let's talk a little bit about the original artwork that I'm basing this work on. The original watercolor painting was something I created a few years ago. I used both watercolors and inks for this one. Here you go. This is what it looks like. I still do like how the drawing looks, although as you can see and as you can tell, there are a few elements that are off. Like I know I did the nose weird as well as I think the eyes and the shape of the head or something. And so I wanted to recreate it. Once everything is ready, I start the painting by going over the line art with watercolors. You can skip this step and use a fine liner or even a colored pencil, but I opted to go this route since it was simpler for me to do. I'm using an orange shade so the lines won't look so harsh in the end. Also, as I go along the piece, I make tiny adjustments in the lines as best as I could. After going over the line art, I can start with the painting process. The first thing I paint is the eyes. Generally, I try and start with these since I feel like if you get the eyes wrong, then the entire painting or portrait suffers. I kept the eyes very simple since I know I'm going to go over it with inks, so I didn't bother making them too detailed. I kept the first wash very watered down before adding more concentrated mixtures on the second and third washes. After I'm happy with the eyes, I move on to the shading on the nose as well as the lips. After that, I work on the face. I apply a thin layer of clear water to the paper, allow it to soak for a few seconds before applying the first layer of color. Working fast, I use a clean, damp brush to run through the edges so it creates a soft edge instead of a harsh line. I allow the first color to dry before applying a second, warmer tint on top of the entire face, taking care to leave gaps that will serve as a highlight. I then add highlights to the hair. I knew majority of the hair will be done in black ink, so I wanted to leave the highlights in a beautiful golden orange shade. One of the biggest changes I made from the original design was changing the lower half. I did away with the flowers in the original drawing and replaced it with ruffles instead. Aside from the ruffles, I also added ribbons flowing throughout the entire piece. I kept the washes to a maximum of 3 layers. Since the paper I used was only 135 GSM, it wasn't thick enough to handle multiple washes without severely buckling. For the snails, I wanted to keep it realistic. I tried to replicate the old version as best as I could while ensuring it fits the colors and tone of the new artwork. The snails were my favorite part in the original painting, so recreating it was a lot of fun to do. If you're wondering why I added snails in the first place, honestly, I just remember being fascinated by them when I made the original painting. I loved how their shell looked and wondered if I could replicate that in watercolor. Sure, it's not the most aesthetic of creatures, but still, I love how this turned out. I remember having such a hard time doing the snails in the first painting, so I was a bit surprised that when I recreated this one, it was a lot easier. In fact, all of the textures that you see is basically just dabs and blobs of paint. After I finished all of the textures on the snail, I added a layer of warm wash all over it to complete everything. Inking the hair was straightforward. The original orange wash served as the highlight, so I just took care of adding the black ink to define the hair shape as well as the individual strands. I'll leave you guys to enjoy this in silence. I'll see you towards the end of the video. And here's the final piece. compared to the original, I can see places where I definitely improved as well as areas that I need to be more mindful of. How about you guys? I'm curious to know, which version do you like best? Thank you so much for joining me this week. Until next time, bye.